Have you ever stopped to think about how hard your kidneys work for you every single day without ever asking for a thank you? Right now, as you're watching this video, your kidneys are quietly filtering your blood, removing waste products, balancing your fluids, and helping keep your blood pressure and your bones healthy. They do all of this in the background, without any fanfare, hour after hour, for your entire life. And here's something that genuinely surprises most people when they first hear it. You can lose up to 90% of your kidney function before you ever notice a single symptom. Let that sink in for a moment. That's not meant to frighten you. It's meant to gently wake you up to something worth paying real attention to, because some of the most ordinary everyday habits, the ones we never think twice about, can quietly add extra strain to these two small but remarkably hard-working organs over the years. Today, we're going to walk through 10 everyday habits that may be working against your kidney health, one at a time, in plain and simple language. And more importantly, for each one, we'll talk about what you can do instead, starting today, without turning your whole life upside down. Stick with me all the way through, because habit number 7 is the one that surprises almost everybody, even people who consider themselves fairly health conscious, and it might be the most important one on this entire list. Before we dive into the list itself, let's take just a moment to understand why this topic deserves our attention, especially for those of us who are 55 and older. As we age, our kidneys naturally become a little less efficient, even in people who are otherwise perfectly healthy. This is simply part of the aging process. In the same way, our joints, our eyesight, or our hearing can change gradually over the years. That's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to be a little more thoughtful and intentional about the small, everyday choices that either support these organs or add unnecessary pressure to them. Chronic kidney disease, in particular, tends to develop slowly and silently over many years, often without a single warning sign until it has already progressed. This is exactly why small, consistent habits matter so much more here than any single dramatic change ever could. Think of your kidneys like the quiet filter tucked away in the back of your refrigerator or your home water system. Most of us never think about that filter until something goes wrong with it. But if you take just a little time now to understand what helps it and what wears it down, you can keep it working smoothly for a very long time to come. Many of us grew up thinking of health problems as things you feel coming, a sharp pain, a fever, something that announces itself clearly enough to send you to the doctor. Kidney health often doesn't work that way, and that's really the whole reason this topic deserves 15 minutes of your time today instead of being quietly skipped over. So let's get into our first habit, one that sounds almost too simple to matter, and yet it's one that nearly everyone underestimates. The first habit is simply not drinking enough water throughout the day. Now, I know this might sound like something you've heard 1,000 times before, but stay with me here, because the reasoning behind it is more interesting than most people realize. Your kidneys rely on a steady, consistent flow of fluid moving through them to flush waste products out of your bloodstream and into your urine. When you're properly hydrated, this process runs smoothly, almost like a gentle river carrying debris steadily downstream without ever slowing down or getting clogged. But when you're chronically even a little bit dehydrated, that river begins to slow. Waste products can become more concentrated in the urine, and over time, this extra concentration can contribute to the formation of kidney stones, and it can force your kidneys to work harder than they really need to, just to keep up with their normal job. Here's the tricky part, especially for those of us getting a bit older. Our sense of thirst naturally becomes less reliable with age. You might genuinely need more water in that moment and simply not feel the thirst signals strongly enough to prompt you to reach for a glass. This is one of the sneakiest habits on this entire list, because unlike smoking or eating too much salt, it doesn't even feel like a habit at all. It feels like nothing, which is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook year after year. A simple, practical fix is to keep a water bottle somewhere visible throughout your day, on your kitchen counter, beside your favorite reading chair, or right on your nightstand, and to take small sips regularly, rather than waiting until you feel thirsty to drink. Some people also find it helpful to tie drinking water to something they already do daily, like taking a sip each time they check the mail, or during every commercial break while watching television. Of course, if you take certain medications, like diuretics, or if you're already managing a heart or kidney condition, your fluid needs may look quite different from someone else's, so this is exactly the kind of everyday detail worth bringing up with your doctor, who can give you a target that's tailored specifically to your own health picture. The second habit involves something that's quietly hiding in nearly every processed food in your kitchen cupboards, and that's excess sodium or salt. Now, to be clear, salt itself isn't some kind of enemy. Your body genuinely needs a certain amount of sodium to function properly, to help regulate fluid balance and support nerve and muscle function. The real problem is the sheer volume that most of us end up consuming without even realizing it, tucked quietly away in canned soups, deli meats, frozen dinners, salad dressings, salty snacks, and even something as innocent looking as a slice of bread. Here's the science, explained simply. Sodium directly affects how much fluid your body holds onto, and it plays a very direct role in your blood pressure. When you consistently eat more sodium than your body actually needs, your blood pressure tends to creep upward over time. And high blood pressure, sustained over years, is one of the leading causes of kidney damage in the world, because it places constant extra stress on the tiny, delicate blood vessels inside the kidneys that do all the actual filtering work. Try picturing a garden hose with the water pressure turned up just a little too high for a little too long. Eventually, that constant pressure wears down the hose itself, even if nothing dramatic happens all at once. That's remarkably similar to what happens slowly, quietly, inside your kidneys over the years. The encouraging news here is that cutting back on sodium doesn't mean your food has to taste bland or boring, not even close. Herbs like garlic, rosemary, basil, and a good squeeze of fresh lemon juice can add wonderful, vibrant flavor to your meals without relying on the salt shaker at all. Taking a moment to read nutrition labels and choosing the lower sodium version of your favorite canned goods or condiments can also make a meaningful difference over time, often without you even noticing much change in the way your food tastes. Now let's talk about the third habit, and this one might genuinely surprise you because it involves something many of us reach for automatically, without a second thought, whenever we're dealing with everyday aches and pains. That's the regular, long-term use of certain over-the-counter pain relievers, specifically a category of medication called NSAIDs, which stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Common well-known examples include ibuprofen and naproxen, medications that sit in nearly every medicine cabinet in the country. Used occasionally, say, for an occasional headache or a sore back once in a while, these medications are generally considered quite safe for most healthy adults. But when they're used frequently, day after day, week after week, especially to manage chronic pain like arthritis, they can gradually reduce blood flow to the kidneys and over time contribute meaningfully to kidney damage. This point is especially important for those of us who are older, because kidney function naturally declines somewhat with age, which means the kidneys simply have less reserve capacity left to absorb and recover from that added, ongoing stress. Now, I want to be very clear about something here. This doesn't mean you need to simply grit your teeth and suffer through chronic pain, and it certainly doesn't mean these medications are inherently dangerous when used appropriately and occasionally. It simply means that if you find yourself reaching for pain relievers almost every single day, that's a meaningful and worthwhile conversation to have with your doctor or your pharmacist. There may well be other options available for managing chronic pain that are gentler on your kidneys over the long run. And your doctor can also periodically check your kidney function with a simple painless blood test if ongoing use of these medications is genuinely necessary for you. Here's the fourth habit on our list, and it connects very closely to what we just discussed a moment ago. Ignoring high blood pressure, or simply not having it checked on a regular basis. High blood pressure is sometimes called a silent condition, and for good reason, because it very often causes absolutely no noticeable symptoms at all. You can feel completely fine, energetic even, while your blood pressure is quietly putting sustained stress on your kidneys, your heart, and your blood vessels every single day, often for years, without you ever knowing it. We touched on this a moment ago in relation to sodium, but this particular habit deserves its own spotlight because uncontrolled blood pressure is one of the top 2 causes of kidney disease worldwide, sitting right alongside diabetes as the leading culprits. And interestingly, the relationship actually runs in both directions. Not only can high blood pressure damage your kidneys over time, but kidneys that are already damaged can also struggle to help regulate blood pressure properly in return, which can create a difficult, self-reinforcing cycle if it isn't addressed. The genuinely encouraging part of this particular habit is that blood pressure happens to be one of the easiest health markers in the entire body to track and monitor. A home blood pressure monitor is inexpensive, widely available, and remarkably simple to use. And many local pharmacies also offer free blood pressure checks if you'd rather not purchase your own device. If you already know your numbers tend to run a bit high, working together with your doctor on a management plan, whether that involves lifestyle changes, medication, or very often a thoughtful combination of both, is one of the single most protective things you can do for your kidneys over the long run, and for your heart as well. Moving on now to the 5th habit, which is consistently eating a diet that's high in added sugar and heavily refined carbohydrates. This particular habit connects directly to blood sugar control, and here's why that matters so much specifically for your kidneys. When blood sugar levels remain elevated over long stretches of time, it can gradually damage the small blood vessels found throughout your entire body, and that includes, once again, those delicate filtering units inside your kidneys called nephrons, which are essentially the microscopic filtering stations doing the real work of cleaning your blood. This is precisely why diabetes stands as the single leading cause of kidney disease around the entire world today. Now, I want to be genuinely clear here, because this isn't about never enjoying a dessert again, or striving for some impossible standard of dietary perfection. It's really about building awareness of where added sugars tend to hide, often in places you might not expect, like sodas, flavored coffee drinks, packaged snacks, and even foods that seem perfectly healthy at first glance, such as flavored yogurts or supposedly wholesome granola bars. A genuinely helpful habit here is simply getting into the practice of reading labels and specifically looking for added sugars, and then gradually swapping some refined carbohydrates, like white bread and white rice, for their whole grain counterparts, which tend to digest more slowly and have a much gentler, steadier effect on blood sugar throughout the day. If you already have diabetes or pre-diabetes, working closely with your healthcare provider on blood sugar management isn't just about your energy levels or your weight, though those matter too. It's genuinely one of the most protective, meaningful things you can do for the long-term health of your kidneys. Now, here comes habit number 6, and this is one of the most commonly overlooked habits on our entire list, mostly because it feels so minor and inconsequential in the moment. Regularly holding in urine for long stretches of time, instead of going when you first feel the urge. Maybe you're right in the middle of a good television show, or you're out running errands and it feels inconvenient to track down a restroom, so you simply decide to wait it out. Occasionally, doing this is completely harmless and nothing to worry about at all. But as a consistent, repeated habit over months and years, it can genuinely create problems. When urine sits in the bladder for extended periods of time, it gives bacteria significantly more time and opportunity to multiply, which meaningfully raises your risk of developing a urinary tract infection. And if a urinary tract infection isn't treated promptly, it can potentially spread upward toward the kidneys themselves, leading to what's called a kidney infection, a considerably more serious condition that typically requires more intensive medical treatment. Beyond just the infection risk, chronically holding urine over many years can also gradually weaken the bladder muscles over time, which can affect how completely the bladder is able to empty during each bathroom visit. The good news is that the fix here is refreshingly simple and doesn't require any special products or lifestyle overhaul. When you feel the urge, try to make it a genuine priority to find a restroom within a reasonable amount of time, rather than routinely pushing it off for hours out of habit or convenience. It's a small shift in behavior, but it's one that genuinely protects both your bladder and, by extension, your kidneys over the years. And now, just as promised at the very beginning of this video, let's talk about habit number 7, the one that tends to surprise almost everyone who hears about it, because it involves something most people automatically assume is healthy simply by default: taking large amounts of certain herbal supplements or unregulated over-the-counter products without any medical guidance whatsoever. We live in a time where supplements are marketed absolutely everywhere, promising better energy, healthier joints, sharper memory, and seemingly better everything, often with bold claims plastered across colorful packaging. And to be entirely fair, some supplements genuinely can be helpful as part of a well-balanced, thoughtful approach to overall health. But here's the important piece that most people simply don't realize. Supplements, unlike prescription medications, aren't regulated with anywhere near the same rigor or oversight, which means the actual dose and purity can vary quite significantly from one brand to another, even for products claiming to contain the exact same ingredient. Certain herbal products in particular, including some marketed specifically for weight loss, muscle building, or general body detoxing, have been linked in documented cases to kidney damage in some individuals, particularly when they're taken in high doses or combined carelessly with other medications a person might already be taking. Even something as seemingly gentle and harmless as excessive vitamin C or certain mineral supplements taken in very high amounts can create real complications for kidney health in specific circumstances, especially for people who already have reduced kidney function. To be clear, this isn't a call to avoid supplements altogether or to view them with suspicion. It's really about treating them with the exact same thoughtfulness and caution you would naturally give to any prescription medication, which means taking a moment to talk with your doctor or your pharmacist before starting anything new, especially if you're already taking other medications or managing an existing health condition. Your local pharmacist, in particular, is often a wonderfully underused resource in situations like this, and most are genuinely happy to answer quick, informal questions about supplement safety whenever you have them.
Habit number 8 brings us to something deeply familiar to many people watching this video, and that's smoking. You've almost certainly heard plenty about the well-established connection between smoking and lung health, and between smoking and heart health. But the link to kidney health specifically is talked about far less often in most everyday conversations, even though the connection itself is very well documented in medical research. Smoking damages blood vessels throughout the entire body over time, and that damage absolutely includes the delicate blood vessels found inside your kidneys. Over the years, this can meaningfully reduce blood flow to the kidneys and speed up the natural decline of kidney function, even in people who don't have diabetes or high blood pressure as additional risk factors. It can also cause existing kidney disease to progress considerably more quickly in people who already have some degree of kidney impairment. Now, I want to acknowledge something honestly here. Quitting smoking, especially after doing it for many years or even decades, is genuinely one of the hardest things a person can ever attempt to do. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise or oversimplify just how difficult that process can be. But even meaningfully reducing the amount you smoke, or reaching out for support through your doctor, a local support group, or nicotine replacement options that are widely available today, can make a real, measurable difference for your overall vascular health, which very much includes the long-term health of your kidneys. And if you happen to be a former smoker who has already successfully quit, whether that was 5 years ago or 25 years ago, please take a genuine moment right now to acknowledge that real accomplishment, because your kidneys, and truly your entire body, continue benefiting from that decision every single day since.
Now let's turn to habit number 9, which involves consistently eating very large amounts of animal protein without much variety or balance across your weekly meals. This particular habit requires a bit of nuance, so let's slow down and walk through it carefully together. Protein itself is absolutely essential, especially for those of us who are older, since it plays a critical role in maintaining muscle mass, which becomes increasingly important with age for maintaining strength, preserving balance, and helping prevent falls. To be perfectly clear, this habit isn't about avoiding protein altogether, not even close. But when someone regularly eats very large portions of red meat and heavily processed meat, meal after meal, day after day, without ever balancing that with plant-based protein sources like beans, lentils, chickpeas, and a wide variety of vegetables, it can place additional, sustained demand on the kidneys,
which are responsible for processing the waste products created whenever protein is broken down and metabolized in the body. For someone with genuinely healthy kidneys, moderate protein intake generally isn't a concern at all, and there's no need for undue worry here. But for those who already have reduced kidney function, or who happen to be at higher risk due to existing diabetes or high blood pressure, protein intake is often something a doctor or a registered dietitian will specifically want to help fine-tune as part of an overall care plan. The practical everyday takeaway here is genuinely about balance rather than restriction. Try gradually incorporating more plant-based protein sources into your weekly rotation, right alongside your usual meat-based meals. Not because meat itself is somehow dangerous, but because thoughtful variety tends to be gentler on your kidneys over time, while still keeping you strong, satisfied, and well-nourished. And finally, we arrive at habit number 10, which might genuinely be the most important habit on this entire list, because in many ways it ties everything else we've discussed together into one simple idea: skipping regular checkups and quietly ignoring early warning signs simply because they seem mild, minor, or easy to explain away with some other reason. Symptoms of kidney trouble can be remarkably subtle, especially in the earliest stages, which is exactly what makes them so easy to overlook. Things like feeling noticeably more tired than usual, mild swelling around the ankles or around the eyes, needing to get up and urinate more frequently during the night, or noticing that your urine looks unusually foamy, can all seem like ordinary, unremarkable parts of simply getting a bit older, easy to brush off without a second thought. But these are precisely the kinds of everyday signs that are genuinely worth mentioning to your doctor, even if they seem minor or you're not entirely sure they mean anything at all. A simple blood test measuring something called creatinine, together with a basic urine test checking for the presence of protein, can give your doctor a remarkably clear picture of how well your kidneys are currently functioning, often long before any noticeable symptoms would ever actually appear on their own. If you're over the age of 60, or if you happen to have diabetes, high blood pressure, or a family history of kidney disease, regular kidney function screening is generally something genuinely worth discussing with your doctor as a routine part of your regular checkups, in much the same way you'd naturally think about screening for other common, well-known health conditions. Catching a small early change gives both you and your doctor so many more options and so much more flexibility than discovering a much larger, more advanced problem later down the road. Before we wrap things up, I want to spend just a little more time on something that ties several of these habits together, because I think it genuinely helps to see the bigger picture rather than 10 separate disconnected tips. Notice how many of these habits circle back to the same few underlying themes. Blood pressure, blood sugar, and hydration all influence the same delicate network of tiny blood vessels inside your kidneys. That means when you improve one area, like cutting back on added sugar, you're very often supporting another area at the same time, like your blood pressure, almost as a natural side benefit. This is genuinely encouraging news, because it means you don't have to tackle all 10 habits as 10 completely separate projects. Making one meaningful change, like walking a little more regularly or swapping out sugary drinks for water, can ripple outward and support several of these areas all at once. Your kidneys, much like the rest of your body, respond well to this kind of gentle, connected consistency far more than they respond to any single quick fix or short-lived effort. It's also worth remembering that everyone's starting point looks a little different. Someone managing diabetes will naturally want to pay closer attention to habits 5 and 9, while someone with a family history of kidney stones might focus more closely on habit 1. There's no single right order to work through this list, and there's certainly no need to feel overwhelmed by it. The goal here was never to hand you 10 new rules to follow perfectly. It was simply to help you notice a few everyday patterns that are genuinely worth a second look, so you can make small, informed adjustments that fit naturally into the life you're already living. So let's take a moment now to bring all of this together into one clear picture. We talked today about the importance of staying properly hydrated throughout your day, being genuinely mindful of the sodium, quietly hidden inside so many processed foods, using pain relievers thoughtfully and sparingly, rather than reaching for them daily without any guidance, keeping consistent tabs on your blood pressure, watching carefully for added sugars tucked into unexpected places, not holding in urine for long, extended stretches of time, treating supplements with the exact same care and caution you'd give any medication, addressing smoking with whatever kind of support genuinely works best for you personally, thoughtfully balancing your protein sources across the week, and staying consistent with regular checkups and appropriate screenings over time. None of these 10 habits, taken on their own, are really about fear, and none of them require striving for some impossible standard of perfection. Kidney health, like most things in the human body, is built gradually, through small, steady choices, repeated consistently over months and years, not through any single dramatic overhaul attempted all at once. You genuinely don't need to change everything overnight, and trying to do so often backfires anyway. Even picking just 1 or 2 of these 10 habits to focus on this month is a meaningful, worthwhile step in exactly the right direction. If anything in this video resonated with you today, or if you happen to recognize one of these habits somewhere in your own daily routine, I would genuinely love to hear from you down in the comments below. Which one surprised you the most? Was it the supplements, the pain relievers, or perhaps something else entirely that you hadn't considered before? Feel free to share your age or where you're watching from today as well. It's always such a wonderful thing to see just how many different corners of the world this community genuinely reaches. And if you found real value in this video, please consider sharing it with a friend or family member who might benefit from hearing this too, because a little bit of awareness can genuinely go such a long way, especially when it comes to something as quietly important as our kidney health. As always, this video is meant to inform and empower you with useful, practical knowledge, not to replace the personal guidance of your own doctor, who understands your individual health history far better than any video ever could. And one last thought before we go. If you're watching this because you're already managing a kidney-related diagnosis, or supporting a spouse, a parent, or a close friend who is, please know that this community truly welcomes you too. Some of the most meaningful comments on videos like this one come from people sharing what's genuinely worked for them, or simply offering a kind word to someone else who's feeling a little worried after watching. You never know who might read your comment at exactly the right moment and feel just a little less alone because of it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I will see you again in the very next one.